Thank you so much. It's so great to be back and talk about one of the things that I am absolutely passionate about because it changed my life when working with volunteers and like extending volunteer strategy. So I'm excited to talk about that today. So today we're going to talk about some of the basics, right? Because like Court said, where some people are starting from the beginning, some people it's a refresher, some people they want to build on top of. So we're going to talk about what an advisory team is, why they work, and I'm going to share some success stories and how to create one at your organization by also trying to avoid the common pitfalls. So make sure to stay towards the end because we're going to think about what to consider when building an engaged, purpose-driven volunteer advisory team that brings volunteer voices to the table and supports strategic decision-making. So we can talk a little bit through that at the end.
So, Nicole, I already read your bio, but I want to hear from you. Just touch on your experience and why advisory teams became one of your passions as a volunteer engagement professional.
Sounds good. Okay, so I have been working in the volunteer engagement space. I counted it up last night for another reason for almost like 17 years. And one of the game changers, I saw somebody who put in the chat that they are new to the organization and their advisory team had been really helpful to them in navigating because they've only been at the organization for 2 years and the volunteers have been there forever. And that happens a lot at a lot of different organizations. The volunteers are often there and they see 3 or 4 staff changes in the time that they're there. And so it was so valuable in every organization that I've started one to hear from the volunteers who were there before, understand the things that they liked, understand the things that they hoped that could change, bringing in their voices to make impact in the environment and the community that they are in. And they were able to bring insights that I would have never thought of. I learned how to lean in on their insight and we're going to talk about it in a minute. I would have these bright ideas. Well, what I thought were bright ideas, let's just put it that way. And so just, like I said, I've had the opportunity to work with volunteers in the sports space, in cultural arts, in human services, just in different spaces. And in every single case, it has really just proved so valuable. And I learned something different every time from a local advisory team right in the city that I was in to when I was overseeing like the director of volunteers nationwide and what that looks like when your people are in different states and how that happens. So that's kind of where all of this is coming from. And I'm just excited to share about it. Okay, yes. So let's talk about that first poll question. On the call, how many people have ever created an advisory team? I'm just curious. Have you ever created an advisory team?
All right. We've got a yes or no poll question up and tons of folks participating right now.
Love that. Ooh, I guess I can vote too. I'm going to vote yes.
Yes, you count too. Awesome. We've got like 77% participation.
Great.
All right, we've got about 79% participation. You let me know when you're ready for me to reveal those answers, Nicole.
Go ahead and reveal.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and I'm going to share the results. We've got about 83% participation. That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
And we've got the results shared here.
Fascinating. Okay. Well, that is really, really good to know. I thought it was going to be a little bit different. So that's even more exciting. That's way more exciting. This really helps. Sounds good. All right. So let's talk about the importance of having an advisory team. Yeah, you can go to next. Yeah. So, as I had mentioned earlier today, um, when when I first started in volunteer engagement, I would have all these amazing ideas, which, well, like I said, I thought they were amazing ideas. And I would put all this work in and then roll it out, either in the newsletter or whatever. And it would literally, I just like, I'm just like so excited because I'm waiting for all the feedback to come in. And then you know what would happen? This is how I'm thinking everybody's going to respond. Yes, it's going to be a party. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is such a great idea. Yeah. So we roll it out, and what happens? Crickets. Nothing. I hear literally nothing. I'm resending emails. I'm like, did people get the email? Did people understand like what's happening? Right. And so then I'm wondering, um, did it even go as planned? Was it supposed to happen? And then, when I find out in the annual survey, that idea was horrible. It sucked. And volunteers don't hold back. That is why I had to start my podcast of navigating feedback from volunteers, because of survey results that would hurt my feelings. Yes, that was why. Not necessarily always because of the ideas that I had, but often because of the ideas that I thought were great, and nobody would say anything, because a lot of people, out of concern of my feelings, they maybe they didn't want to hurt my feelings, and they didn't want to say, they don't want to tell me to my face, Nicole, that wasn't the best idea, but they unleashed in the end of the year survey, right? And it was just like, oh, that's the face that I would make. Oh, I thought it was a great idea. And if any of y'all don't know about this picture, it's from The Devil Wears Prada, and this they're looking at a designer is bringing out their new spring collection, and they were like, if she doesn't like it, if she looks to the side and purses her lips, it's a disaster. And that's how I would feel after some of my ideas based upon what was in the survey. So I'm coming to you to talk about how to eliminate. You're never going to be able to eliminate all that, but you can definitely, uh, minimize it, right? So then it left me feeling, gosh, I wish I knew what they wanted, because it was one of those things when I asked, they wouldn't really tell me. But then when I would try an idea, it'd be like, oh, that's not so great. Well, then, like, what is it that you want? So, thus, advisory team, right? I want to hear from the people who are in it, who are doing the things. And what do they say? It's not for us if it's not by us, or if we're not in it curating. So I was like, instead of trying to figure out and guess and try to understand, and especially, like I said, if I was coming into an organization and the volunteers had been there longer than I have, it why recreate the wheel? Why try all these things when you can get the input and the insight from people who are already there, who are passionate and care about the organization, to help guide you in the decisions and things that you want to do. So today we're going to talk through some things. We're going to talk about, again, what the team is, why you should have one, how to create one, and what an advisory team does, but almost even more importantly, what it does not do. So, definition of an advisory team: it's a group, a collection of individuals. I really try not to read slides, but this one I'm reading right off the bat. Okay, so an advisory group is a collection of individuals who bring unique knowledge and skills, which complement the knowledge and skills that its leader has in its leader, in order to make a more effective governing program. So the advisory team does not have formal authority. It's not making rules. It's not, upholding the law. But what it is doing is giving you the insight that you need as the person who is organizing everything and leading the volunteer program, leading the volunteer strategy, to help you understand how to best move and get the best ROI, not necessarily even money wise, but just in terms of investment of your time, um, and events and ideas that will really help to build community engagement within your volunteers. All right. So here is the second full question. So a lot of you have never started an advisory team, which is great because that is why you are here. So this is going to be an interesting poll question because some of you all already have, and so you might be able to talk to this. But what do you think are some of the challenges in creating and or working with an advisory team? If it's in creating an advisory team, what are the things that you feel like you have to overcome? What has stopped you? What has made you go, oh, this is a really good idea, but dot, 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 put that in there. And then if you already have started an advisory team, what were the challenges that you faced or might still be facing in working with, like creating an advisory team and working with an advisory team?
Yeah, and this one's short answer, so you can write your own words in there.
And so a lot of Court, I don't know if we can see a lot of these answers because it might be some of like what we chat about towards the end too. Because I know we're not going to be able to read through all of this right now.
Yeah, we'll definitely save this and make sure that folks get a copy of the list afterwards so that we can like address, what are the challenges. Which we have like 100 answers so far. So this is great participation. Like really excited about that.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh, that's exciting. So we will definitely, I'm sure we'll address some of those here. Um, yes, okay. We can go on. I think let me close my. Okay. So let's talk about some of the pitfalls. This I see all the time. Lack of clear communication is a huge, huge pitfall. If you're creating an advisory team and there's a lack of clear purpose, no role clarity, and lack of structure and or governance, things will go rogue, they will get haywire, and you will be like, why did I ever decide to do this? So really clear communication is vital to any advisory team. If there's no onboarding or orientation, giving them an understanding of like literally just setting those expectations, also vital to a successful, engaging advisory team. Ignoring conflict or power dynamics. Ooh, I have some stories I'm gonna tell you, but you cannot ignore those because it's something that's so small it can bubble up and cause havoc beyond measure. Lack of relationship building with the team. Not only you building that relationship with the advisory team, but also the advisory team building that relationship. And then hold on, my thing is in the way here. Oh yeah, there's no evaluation process to let people know how they're doing, how what they can work on, how they can do better, and the things and celebrate the things that they're doing well. So it's really important to determine the why before we go any further. For anybody who has never started an advisory team, or if you already have, think about the why. What is the why behind why you want to do this? You start with your why and then you curate around that. If you just start it willy-nilly and you're not really sure, that's where that unclear communication comes in because one day you're saying, oh, it's going to be this, and the next day it's going to be this, and the next day it's going to be this, and it's just going to cause confusion across the board, which can lead to conflict, which could lead to struggle and power dynamics and all of those things. So if we bring it all the way back to what is the why. Think about why you want to start the team and noodle on that for a little bit. So I'll give you a couple of things to think about, right? There are some definite benefits of having an advisory team. Number one, it creates leadership as recognition. Oh my goodness, the stories I'm going to share with you. It helps to come up with creative solutions that you don't always have to come up with. As volunteer engagement professionals, we're already doing 100 things all over, and we have to come up with an idea and come up with an idea for this and this and this and this and this. Delegate that, let them get into the process, and they will blow your mind with the ideas that they came up with that you would have never even thought of. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And because they thought of it, because they're invested, they're usually more willing to take it and run with it with parameters, but they want to make it happen as well. It's a perfect way to test the waters before making any sweeping decisions. Hey, I have this amazing idea. What do y'all think about this? If I'm presenting it to a team of 10 and they look at me like I'm crazy, that's a lot better than presenting it to a team of 200 and now it's caused a whole bunch of issues. I can present it. They can help me tweak it. There's some things they're like, yeah, Nicole, just nix that. Just don't even. I'm like, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Um, it's really great to have as many perspectives represented as the table at the table as possible. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. It helps to create a safe space for volunteers to speak up in two different reasons. Sometimes volunteers they maybe don't want to put it in the survey and they won't necessarily come and tell me. But if they know that somebody's on the advisory team because they are trusted, they know that they can tell that person and the person on the advisory team can bring it to me anonymously and we can have the discussion and it creates a safe place for people to have those conversations. And then last, it creates mentorship opportunities, not only for you to mentor your team, but for your advisory team to mentor other volunteers coming up and involved in your program. All right, so this is what they don't do. And it's very clear that you have this conversation to say an advisory team is not for people to come and just complain and a grievance committee. Like everybody's just complain about everything that they don't like. If you don't like it, put it in the survey. Just kidding. I mean, it's anonymous. It's a lot easier. And it's also not a place where we're going to sit and have high tea and gossip and be like, oh, well, did you know what happened with so-and-so? That is not what this is. That is not what this is. Okay. So let's talk about what it is. It is an opportunity for brainstorming and all kinds of other amazing things. They are an extension of your voice. We all know that in terms of recruitment, word of mouth is powerful. Well, so is this opportunity to reinforce the mission, the vision of the organization. If your volunteer program has like a volunteer mission, it's also a way to repeat that mission as well, because you could put things in the newsletter, you could put things in an email, but sometimes if they're on a shift and they're gathering together, hey, if it comes up, let it be organic. Nobody's not like walking with a list of things to say when they're sitting in the clubhouse, like nothing like that. But reiterating those things, if somebody has a concern about something like, hey, well, did you know you can send Nicole an email or you can let us know and we can bring it up to the advisory committee. Or remember, we are mission first. So maybe if you have an idea, sure, submit it. Also, reminding us like, because one of the things we used to have to worry about is like people wouldn't want to sign up for certain shifts because I was an arts and cultural organization and they were like, oh, well, if I can't see this show for free, I don't want to sign up. And it was an opportunity for them to be like, okay, but are you here volunteering for the organization, for the audience to have the best experience? Or are you here because for selfish reasons that, there's 3,000 people coming in and because you don't want to see the show, you're not going to volunteer? Like, are we really here for the community or are we here for ourselves? Not in a corrective way, not in a demeaning way, but just in a way to kind of help remember and remind people of why we're here and what other messaging that you need to get through the ranks that you're putting in the newsletter, that you're putting everywhere else that needs to be reinforced. Here are a few examples of things that our volunteer advisory team came up with and either they came up with or they executed on. One of the things that I loved is, and speaking of like technology, right? We were doing a new technology upgrade integration with all the things for volunteer managers. And it was like, this is going to be great. And I was like, no, what we're going to do is we're going to test it with our volunteer advisory team first. They are our product testers. Give them the link, let them go in, let them find the glitches, let them ask the questions, so we went back and forth with the advisory team 2 or 3 times before rolling it out to the entire volunteer database. And we were able to minimize so many challenges that we would have had we just rolled it out. We did an annual volunteer appreciation gift. They were tasked with choosing it because they know their audience. They know what they would like. I would ask them, what do you all think? What do you think would be beneficial that would help you all during Volunteer Appreciation Month? We gave them a committee section in the newsletter, so it wasn't just the voice of the program manager, but it was voices of the volunteers talking about sharing their stories, things that they loved about volunteering, the experiences that they were having. When we were having some well, we were having some challenges because I was the new person who had come in and there was like friction behind whole thing. They were like, Nicole, we should really have a town hall to address a lot of these concerns. And we did. We had a town hall. It was one of the best things that we did. We brought in executive leadership so that they had an opportunity to speak directly to the people who were running things. And it just really calmed the waters. And that came from them. I mean, there's so many things. There are so many things that they can get involved in that can be productive. They usually, whenever we did our annual volunteer dinner, because that was one of the things that they love to do, they chose the theme. They did all the decorations. It was the whole thing. So they put them to use. I'm telling you, if you ask them, they will give that input, and 9 times out of 10 will run with it. Okay, so you're like, so you're sold, right? I've done enough. You're like, okay, yes, I want that. But how the heck do we do this? Okay, well, let's talk about it. So there's a couple of things. I know I'm gonna like really simplify it. Um, Simple checklist. It's the invitation, the interview, the selection, and the announcement. Those are the 4 steps, but there's a lot that goes into each of those steps. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each one just to kind of give you an overview to understand what that looks like. So the invitation, get the word out wherever your volunteers are. So if that's through your email, if it's a newsletter, through word of mouth, if you all have a volunteer portal, make sure that everybody has the opportunity to know that they can be a part of this. That, hey, we're starting a new advisory team, and this is why that purpose is important because you put in there, this is why we are doing it. If it's something that you would want to be a part of, you can either like nominate yourself, like raise your hand and say, I would like to be a part of it, or nominate somebody who you think would be a really great fit. And it's fascinating the number of people who were nominated. And it was such a way to uplift volunteers because they were like, I had no idea that my peers thought this way and thought that would be great for this. Even people who had said no, they didn't really want to participate. They were honored to even be thought well enough of to be nominated, which elevated their spirits. So the next is the interview portion. And interview could be a strong word, but it's just like 3 or 4 key questions that you ask that you think are important. Number one, are you willing to represent the organization? Number two, are you willing to handle people coming and bringing their concerns to you? Because not everybody wants that. Because let me tell you, as soon as they know, they're like, oh, well, let me tell so and so about everything that I think is wrong, right? And so I would train our advisory team on how to manage and how to work through that. But some people just don't want to be bothered with it, and that is totally okay. You ask them, are different things like, are they committed to the mission, or the things that are going to be really important to you as you create this team, as respective to your organization, what those things are, then that's kind of what can go into those interview questions. Okay, on the selection, be intentional, make sure every voice is represented as best as possible. This is probably the most difficult part. Um, in the toolkit that I have and in the course that I have, I literally walk down like step by step by step how to do this because it can get cumbersome, and I give you like tools to help you. But one of the cases, what I try to do, I look at the demographic of my volunteer program. So I'm going to use the arts and cultural just because it's easy to think about. So we had different volunteer roles. We had docents, which are ushers. We had admin volunteers. We had ushers. We had audio describers. And we had just like general admin and like show prep volunteers, like a wide variety of different types of volunteers. I wanted to make sure that any decision that we are making, that each one of those rules was represented. Now, you're not always going to get it, but you do the best that you can. On the advisory team, I wanted somebody who was a brand new volunteer to the organization because I wanted to understand what their process was like. Because a lot of us lose our volunteers maybe within the first 3 to 6 months. I want to hear from that volunteer, what has their experience been? What was the onboarding like? What did they feel welcome? What could we have done better to try to keep people in? I want a volunteer that's been at the organization for at least 5 years. They're in the midst of it. What has their experience been? I want the person who was here, when the dirt broke, on the organization, and now it's like 30 years later, what their perspective is. Getting different years. I want the person who, if they are 18 or older, or if you have youth volunteers, the person who is who's a little bit more seasoned in age, right? I want the different generations, all of that in there. Genders, um, race, um, abilities, everything. So that when we are in there and we are making decisions, we are not accidentally missing out on the voice of something that's important. So, for example, a really great example, we were making a change to our volunteer, our recognition program. Like if you do certain amount of hours, you get this type of thing, blah, 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 blah. And it was all fixed. But when somebody who was an admin volunteer, she was like, well, that really works great for them, but admin volunteers don't even have an opportunity to earn those kind of hours. So we're always going to be left out if we don't do this. And it was like, whoa, okay, stop. Let's go back, rethink, rework. And so having all of those different voices and those perspectives really make a difference. And now, ideally, like I had one volunteer, she was phenomenal. She was a docent. She had been there since before the organization started. She was an audio describer, she was an usher, and an admin. So I had all five voices in one volunteer. So I don't necessarily have to have five different volunteers. She culminated a lot of them. So if I only wanted 8 people in the room, but I have 25 positions, I found the volunteer that took up at least 5. So that really helped minimize who all I was bringing in. And also understanding the why and the purpose of what your team is going to help you select the person that you need. So long story short, one year we were focusing on we were going into a new year, and that year we really, really wanted to focus on accessibility. And so when we were doing our decision making, there was somebody who had been on the advisory team for 2 years straight, and then somebody else had popped in, but they had a lot of experience with accessibility. And so um, I always made sure to tell people we are looking at what is best for the organization and best for the volunteer team. So it was hard to replace those two, but that person had what we needed to take the program to the next level. And so it was a conversation that I had to have, but it was the right decision that we made, because the progress that we made that year, we would not have been able to make because we didn't have the person with the accessibility voice. So being transparent and honest is also paramount. And always bringing it back to, it's what is best for the organization. It is best for the volunteer pool, because that's ultimately what's going to be best for the community and how we are serving. So you go through all that, the work to make the selection, and then so what do you do? So we talk about these 3 steps. Like you have, you can do it at your annual recognition dinner. We used to do it at the end of each year. We'd be like, this is your advisory team for the next year. We would shout it from the news rooftops in the newsletter. We had weekly updates in the volunteer program. We would put it there. Again, anywhere that your volunteers are getting their news, you can put that there. Now let's talk about structure. I almost feel like I should have put this a little bit back before the invitation, because you're thinking things through. But just to give you a general idea, right? You're thinking of like, how many people, how often do you meet? Where do you meet? How long is the commitment? Court, can you just go to the next slide really quick? I just want to make sure. Okay, yeah, okay, go back. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't sure my brain was going. Okay. So in terms of how many people, you decide that. Um, I've always tried to have an odd number of people because if we had to vote for somebody, the majority would win. Um, but that's just me and where I'm trying to go. Um, Again, you try to represent, and back to the slide, you don't have to change the slide though, just back to the one before when I was talking about making sure every voice was heard, especially when we were and I was overseeing a national program, and now we had programs in, California, Florida, Massachusetts, Denver. I mean, I know I went from states to cities, but whatever. But there was people from all the different regions and groups, which was also important because sometimes we would make decisions for volunteers across the board that would work for East Coast, but it would not work for West Coast. One example I'll never forget, we wanted to put something on the back of a t-shirt that said, like, I'm a volunteer, like, ask me how to volunteer. And more West Coast people, they were like, cool, not a problem. But guess what? A lot of times they drive everywhere they go. And they're usually in places where they want to be at that time. The people on the East Coast of New York, they were like, I am sorry, I am not walking down the sidewalk of New York with a big old ask me on the back. She was like, I don't want anybody asking me nothing off of the street. And it was just like, oh my goodness, we had never thought about that because the idea had originated where a lot of us were like, ask me, but it didn't matter because we're always in the car. So nobody's going to see you until you get to where you go. Things like that matter. So thinking about the number of people that you have, how often do you meet? Again, that's up to you. It can either be quarterly, it could be monthly. I found that monthly works best, but you can do quarterly. I don't think weekly is good. I think weekly or biweekly is a little too soon because especially if you give out tasks, it doesn't give people enough time to really complete the task by the time we come back together. So ideally monthly, but you have to pick it according to what is good for your organization. Where do you meet? Our local organizations, we would meet, in a local place. At the organization that we met like in the boardroom or things like that. And my national one, we were clearly meeting virtual, and it was crazy because one year it was like, well, what time are we meeting? Because 6 o'clock on West Coast is 9 o'clock on East Coast. And it was like, so getting that buy-in from everybody, is this okay time? And then also making sure you stick to time, because if people did volunteer and they're like, okay, we're gonna do 6 o'clock West Coast, which is 9 o'clock East Coast, which means get everything done and end because it's 10 o'clock at night over here. And we need to be respectful. Those people are trying to go home. They're trying to go to bed, they're trying to eat, whatever. So if people come to that agreement, then just making sure to respect that time so that everybody's time is honored. And then how long is the commitment? I am very, very, I feel strongly about it being just a 1 year commitment, 1 year commitment, but up to 3 years in a row. This is a lot easier if you are starting something new. For the person who the advisory team has already been in place and they're already rolling, you might not want to come in and talk about, oh, look at this, right? But the reason why I say that is, number one, what I have found is if people can't hold their commitments, and sometimes if they're ashamed or embarrassed, it's hard for them to come and say, I can no longer commit. At the year, it's their way to be out. Be like, oh, my term is up. I don't think I'm going to renew. It kind of gives them a way out without them being embarrassed. It also keeps the ideas and the perspectives fresh, and people don't start to take ownership of like, oh, I am on the advisory team, because it's happened and I've had to like, listen, no, you're on the advisory team, not the advisory team. Okay. It keeps people's perspectives fresh. Also, if you're having a challenge with somebody who just really wants to stay, but maybe they haven't been upholding their commitments and you want them to go. Or like in the last that other example that I told you, there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with that person and what she was doing, but we were focusing on something different the next year, and it gives you the opportunity for it to be flexible and to bring in. Plus, when people realize that it's not something that they're just going to just stay, they tend to work for it and they appreciate it more as opposed to I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So, like it's the mindset changes and becomes definitely more collaborative, and people realize that and they understand that as it rolls off, and now it gives other people an opportunity and other voices to be heard, and it just keeps it fresh and clean and moving forward, and gives and has allows people to be able to opt in, opt out, all those types of things. So we renew it every year. You can choose the same people again, up to 3 years, and then have new ones come in. And though it always worked out to where you have a few that want to stay the 3 years, but also family commitments change, all those different types of things change. So you still have new voices that are coming in, and you still also have the institutional knowledge or the team knowledge of the people that there were there before to still help mentor those new ones that are coming in. So it's not very rarely have I ever been in a situation where the whole team rolls off and it's a brand new team to start. Like that very rarely has ever happened. So the last part is recognition. It is amazing. This was a happy accident, how this turned into something that was so amazing. Kat, can you go? I mean, Kat, I'm sorry, Court, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go back. I'm sorry. My brain is on a different slide. Okay, so in terms the picture changed, that's why. Um, it was definitely a happy accident. People like came out of their shell and they were so honored. They were like, wow, you thought enough of me and my commitment to the organization to kind of put me in a leadership role to help. Our advisory team members stepped up. They started leading some of our volunteer trainings. So now the volunteer leaders were leading other volunteers and they were able to relate to them. Um, they saw it as they got a new kind of level of respect from their peers that they didn't expect from before. It made them feel just a little bit different because yes, we are always saying thank you, and we will give gifts, but I also feel like sometimes there's that saying where um actions speak louder than words, right? And it's like, oh, you're so great, you're so great, you're so great. And boy, we wish we had 10 more just like you. Well, here's your opportunity to create 10 more just like them. Here, you have the opportunity to bring these people on and show them the ropes, lead the trainings. And also, as we're delegating that to them, they're taking more ownership. And you know what was bananas about the whole thing? So, sometimes they were harder on other volunteers than I would have ever been. And I had to kind of calm them down. I'm like, listen, okay, like have a little grace. But because they were so passionate and they were so committed to excellence and they wanted just the best, that's what they were expecting from their peers. But it was so funny because I had to be like, okay, but it's okay, it's okay, like have a little grace on them. You've been here forever. They're just starting. Give them a little grace. I've never seen anything like it. It was phenomenal. But they took ownership and they ran with it, and they loved um being recognized at the volunteer dinner. Some of them didn't. And so we were like, if you don't want to be there in front of a crowd getting applauded, that is also okay. You don't have to. But people were able to use that, and it was amazing. Like they would tell their parents and their grandparents and their kids, and it was really a byproduct of when you're showing people appreciation and that recognition comes in. It's a completely, sometimes you're just not even ready about how amazing that byproduct is, because there's nothing more, in my personal opinion, there's nothing more powerful than telling somebody else, I trust you. And that advisory team is an action of saying, I trust you. And that there's something powerful in the words and also the actions that say that really make people want to step up and do things beyond your wildest dreams. Just have to say. Yeah. Okay, now next slide. Sorry. So after all of this, just drop in the chat really quick. Like, how likely are you to start an advisory team, right? You might be still like, this is really great, but I have to get permission from this person and I have to be able to do this and the boss will never go for it and all these kinds of things. Just drop in the chat, how likely would you like to do it? And while you're doing that, I want to give you a little secret. There's this thing that I like to call pilot programs. Often if you come to a supervisor and you're like, I want to do this, they are like, whoa. But if you say, I want to do a pilot program and just kind of test something out to see how it works, because the risk is less, there's more of an opportunity. Okay, go ahead, try it out because you're just trying it anyway. That way, you can work through it, you can develop it. Literally, you can work the kinks out, see what it's like, and then when you can report back that it worked, how well it worked, it's a much easier way to roll things out. And then some people will say, well, the other thing that I would say is often I would do the whole ask for forgiveness, not permission, because it was something that I knew would work. And I knew I had one supervisor. It didn't matter what I said, she was always going to say no. Well, she wasn't really like a supervisor, but she was like a coworker. It didn't matter what I said. I would say things purposely just to see and say opposite. It got to the point he's like, well, let me say opposite of what I want, because if I say what I really want, she'll say no. But if I say opposite of it, then I'll get what I need. Like it was that crazy, right? But sometimes you just do it and show that it's, and then all of a sudden they're like, how were you able to do this? Oh, well, I started this advisory team and they're knocking things out and we delegated to them and they're knocking things out. And when they start to see that things are working, then they're like, oh, okay, well, carry on as you were. But if you had brought it to them, they would have tell you all the reasons why it wouldn't work. So you know the relationship that you have at your organization with your bosses, with your supervisors. Choose which one. You might be able to have that one where your supervisor might work, can work on it with you or just say, hey, go for it. But if you have one that may not, everybody doesn't always have to know what you're doing. And when it starts working, then you can show that you've learned how to work with a group of people, delegate, and come up with phenomenal answers. Nobody's going to say no to that when it's working. So.
Mhm.
So if you are interested in a lot of the things that I had talked about, and again, Court said like all this will go out. This is a toolkit that I was talking about. All those things that I was talking about, like how to choose the people, and it's like templates of the email to send out, the questions to ask in the interview. It's basically advisory team in a box. And you can scan the QR code and see if you want to get it there. And then also, if you go to the next slide, um, oh yeah, if there's any questions. Oh, and then this. If you want to, all of the stuff that Court was talking about, like the journals, I have literally a starting advisory team course, and it's a little bit more in depth than just the toolkit. And it will walk you step by step on how to do everything and how to get, and looking at the results and things that you want as well. But all of that, if you go to my website, all of that help is there for you as well. So now let's talk about questions that have come in and concerns and all of those good things. This is like the good part. This is the meat and potatoes. Let's talk.
All right, Erica, we had a lot of really great questions come through. Do you want to get started with some of those, pitching this to Nicole and give her a second to take a sip of water if she needs?
Yeah, are you ready? We diving in here? I do
Yeah.
have a little list of questions. I think the first one is, what are your thoughts on the pros and cons of having an advisory team with that fixed membership versus an advisory pool with a more fluid membership? I know that you touched on this when we talked about those kind of term limits. Would what are your thoughts on having something even more fluid? People come in, people come out, or do you really recommend that some type of structure?
I recommend some type of structure because it gets so fluid that people don't know what's going on. Messaging can get lost. Uh, I think whatever it is, if you want whatever it is, just let it be structured and consistent. Now, for me, it was up to 3 years. If you wanted something different, cool. If there's something else that you want to do that's more of a team like that, I wouldn't call it an advisory team. Maybe call it something else where people can pop in and the structure is less. But if you want to get stuff done, this kind of gives that structure of there's a commitment and we have a year to get things done and we need people to show up and knock things out and we want different voices all the time because otherwise you get in that rut of it's the same voices doing the same things and we're not growing, we're not reaching different people. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, no,
And
I love that.
I was going to say something about Erica. I think you dropped Nicole's webinar from last year with volunteer feedback in the chat. There's like a difference between the structure of how you receive all feedback versus the advisory team structure. It really sounds like there's just a very clear distinction into how that is received, structured, utilized. Could you maybe speak a little bit to the difference? Because I know you had sort of some policies around volunteer feedback and how you received that, and you touched on it earlier, and it just sounds like there's a difference.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest differences, like the volunteer feedback that I was talking about there, usually that's something that's coming in very indirectly. It's either in a survey, it's in the suggestion box. It's kind of that very indirect way. And I used to, and I may have mentioned it in the webinar, but I used to have to block time out and like get my mind right to read it because at the time when all this first started happening, I was at like I said, an arts and cultural organization, and like they were all grandmothers and grandparents, right? And I'd pick stuff, and I'm like, oh well, let me just go to the suggestion box. My feelings were hurt. I was like, what grandmother would say this to somebody, right? Like these grandmas are mean, and so I would have to like carve out time and get my mind right to prepare myself for what I'm going to read and then remind myself to take the emotion out of it and like what are they really saying and weighing it according to do they really have a valid point or are they just venting? And I had to learn how to determine the difference and not throw the baby out with the bathwater and understand some of this is good information and I maybe people say things and they write things when they're upset. I had to learn to remove the emotion from it. And that was a huge, huge learning curve for me. But oftentimes, once I learned to do that and I got to the meat and the potatoes of it, it made a difference. Um, Most people want to give that feedback like that. The advisory team, it's a little bit easier because well, I wouldn't necessarily say easier, but it's definitely different because it's definitely more direct feedback, but people are coming back, but they're willing to give you and share the feedback in a different way. But not only are they sharing that feedback, they have an opportunity to come up with a solution for it as well. So it's a very different setting, and it's not a you. It comes more from a this is the organ the program like the how the volunteers feel. How do we solve this together? So different, definitely very different audiences.
Erica, what other questions? I see you've got a few coming in.
Yeah, we got a couple here. I did have a couple of people asking, who is doing the selecting here? For new members, if you're first creating it, is there a team? Is there a pool of people who selects these members? And if we are doing term limits, who's picking the new people? Is that the outgoing advisory team? How does that work? And then as kind of a piggyback to that, would you recommend involving paid employees, staff, supervisors into these committees, or is it really just this should be volunteer run?
So as far as the who, you can make that determination. For me, it was me as the leader of the volunteer program because I wanted the voice and I wanted, I know what I wanted. And so I purposely picked the people who were going to give me the most unbiased and real answers that I knew that I was going to get. So it was something that I did. You can design it however you would like. If you want somebody else to do it, whoever it is, they have to be extremely unbiased. I personally would not suggest the outgoing team to select new people because now it becomes um, a, a a friends thing, a popularity contest. And oh, these are the people that I like, and so I'm going to recognize. People have to really innately learn how to be unbiased, and sometimes that can be difficult. So for me, that I personally wouldn't suggest the outgoing advisory team to pick unless you give them specific parameters and this is what you're looking for. But also, when I pick, if somebody doesn't get chosen, they're mad at me. If somebody get now, oh, well, you were on the advisory team and you didn't, and it just can cause all kinds of drama. But everybody can be mad at me. I don't care. Be mad at me. But I don't want that blame or that frustration or any of that redirected to any of the other volunteers. That just comes to me. And as far as so I would say you can have two different types of teams depending on what you're looking at. For me, I really wanted a volunteer advisory team. I wanted only the volunteer voice because now if you invite staff and other people in, depending on what it is, they may not feel comfortable speaking up. But there's also you can do one where you have volunteers and paid staff and other people that are in it and you're talking, but I wouldn't call it a volunteer advisory team, call it something else. And also make sure you put the why and what the purpose of this is to get, organizational understanding regarding what we're going to do about how we're working on these things together, as opposed to this is because I want to understand what is going on exactly with the volunteer team and what their concerns are and how we address it specifically here. Because sometimes they would come and they're like, this staff person and this staff person, this person was rude, this, blah, blah, blah. They may not feel comfortable saying that with paid staff in the room. So just kind of be thinking about it. But so it doesn't mean that you can't do it. I just wouldn't combine them. I personally would have two different ones.
Separate.
It's also a lot more work, but it depends on what you're needing.
Yeah, and what your goal is. That makes a lot of sense. I got a couple of more for you. I am curious. I'm seeing a lot of people are asking, how do you recruit for this? Especially folks that maybe have a smaller volunteer pool. Would you recommend a specific recruitment strategy where you're going out and asking folks to be involved, or is it a combination? You're doing that as well as connecting with your current active volunteers.
So my secret is I say nominations are open and anybody can nominate, which means I can nominate too. And when I nominate people, we just say you have been nominated. It doesn't necessarily say how. So in terms of that recruitment aspect, there are people in the pool that I'm like, I would really love for this person to be on there, but I also want it to be fair across the board. So I would nominate so and so because I really want them to be a part of the team. Because the thing is, they still have the right to say, no, I don't necessarily want to be involved. Because now if I'm going and I ask Sarah, but everybody else had to be nominated, now it looks like I'm picking favorites. And I want to eliminate that. So I can nominate who I want to. And it's the same way of reaching out to say somebody has nominated. They don't have to know it was me. And when I nominate, if Court nominates you, Erica, I just say somebody nominated you, but I don't tell them it was Court. The nominator is not important as the fact that you were nominated. Now, the very, very first year that I was there and I didn't know any of the volunteers, I didn't have a basis to go from. I connected with staff who were like, who are the volunteers that really do well here that could really like give me advice in terms of what I'm looking for to build this team. And so that first year, the staff picked, That was interesting. But it was a starting place because I didn't know volunteers well enough to know. So there's a couple of things you could do. Maybe wait for a year and you start to build relationships and understand and see behaviors and see character and see integrity rise. And then within the next year, you're saying, this is something that I want to start. And now you have a basis to go off of. Or if it's something that you want to start right away, but you haven't been there, then ask the people, your staff that has worked with volunteers a lot and get their input. That's also another way to do it.
We have
Okay.
2 minutes left if we have time for one more question, if that's okay.
I'll be succinct. So I have one more that I thought was interesting. It's kind of around communication. Um, what happens if you have too many voices, too many separate committees, a lot going on, but not a whole lot getting done? And do you encourage like communication in between those structured touch points, those structured meetings?
Yes. So one way to help eliminate all the extra voices and things not getting done, one of the things that we do is I have like a contract, and it's like these are the expectations, these are the things that um, I'm expecting of this, and so nobody has time to waste. And also, if you waste people's time and there's stuff not getting done, you're going to have people drop off and the validity of your team is going to drop and nobody's going to want to participate anyway. So make sure that you are assigning meaningful tasks that are really going to move the program forward, assign deadlines, and make sure that you're touching base on the progress of those every time that you meet. And then as far as oh shoot, what was the second part of that question?
Like communication in between those,
Oh,
do we want to structure it so we're just pinging everybody? You can call, you can email in between meetings, or do we want to really consolidate and talk about those points inside of those structured meetings?
so I definitely encourage them to talk to each other, be in a group, have those conversations so that when we come to meet together, it's how do we move this forward? Unless it's a new discussion that we have to bring and we just aren't able to, but the tasks should be it's set in such a way that it can be like it's almost like yes or no questions. Yes, I can do it. Yes, the task is done, etc. But unless like something just blows up and like, oh, this happened, we need to have a discussion about this. Ideally, when we get back together, it is to move business forward, and that tone has to be set. And that's where it's like we're not coming in here to gossip. We're coming in here to get stuff done.
Yeah, set the expectation.
Well, I want to say thank you so much. We went right up to the edge of the hour here, and I can't say thank you enough to Nicole. This has been incredibly informative. I've got tons of ideas and I'm going to take probably today and do something with, but I want to let everyone know that we will be following up with you via email. So please look for an email in your inbox within the next couple of days. It's going to have your recording. It's going to have links to Nicole's resources that she has shared here. And we're going to make sure to also get certificates of participation for those of you who are CBAs. And we're going to make sure to also get you some of our resources that can support you as well. And huge thank you to Nicole. Please follow her on, I follow her on LinkedIn. That's my favorite place to follow Nicole, but you can also follow her on her website, NicoleRsmith.net, and get involved with Alive and see what they're up to. Nicole, any last words before we say huge thank you and good day?
No, I just want to say thank you so much and wishing you the best of luck. Use or not use, but think of your volunteer advisory team as an ally, as a way to delegate, elevate, and amplify everything that you're doing.
Absolutely. Those are the best words to end on. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thanks to Erica. And thank you to every single volunteer engagement professional that logged on with us today. We will get so many resources to you, and we'll also see you next month. We've got, I'll just announce today, our next month September webinar is going to be with Dana Litwin, and we're going to talk about sustainable volunteer roles. So you all are going to be the first to receive the link to that event, and we'll see you again. Thanks for being a part of our Get Connected Innovative Approaches to Volunteer Engagement webinar series. And you're out there making a difference, and we're proud to work with you. So take care. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, everyone's saying thank you in the chat to Nicole.
Reach out to me. I want to hear what you learned. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I am happy to have a chat.
But we've got a lot of Alive members here today too, not surprising. So that's fun.
Thrive with Alive. Alive is our tribe. Hey.
Thank you so much, everyone. Amazing. Erica, I'll see you. I'll see you at work. And Nicole, I'll follow up with you too. And we'll see everyone next month. All right.
Sounds
Take
great.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.